Hi, my name is Kaylin. I want to welcome you back to another episode of the Visionary Boss podcast, your intentional guide to living, working, and traveling well. The Visionary Boss philosophy is that being a boss starts with governing yourself, your mind, and your psyche. This is a podcast space for anyone who is seeking an improved quality of life. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you're aspiring to have your own business, or you simply just want to live more intentionally. Today is Sunday. I'm recording in the studio, and it's the first day of June. So a lot of newness, a lot of nuance, and a new road to tread on. I'm excited for this month because it's my birthday month and I like summer. So speaking of newness, I want to talk about something. I want to talk about breakups this episode. We're talking about breaking up with cycles, breaking up with thoughts and patterns that hinder us, breaking up with people, jobs, places, breaking up with our old ways. All of that kind of is intertwined, and getting into this new season, I like to set the tone. So the tone for this season is we're being intentional, we're being accountable for how we are, we're looking at ourselves in the mirror. I know accountability, that's a big strong word right there, but there's nothing wrong with having standards for others, but we have to look in the mirror and see who we are, how can we improve on our communication, and what ways do we fall short with our boundaries that we should have for ourselves first. I think that there's always this pattern and conversation when we're talking about being in relationships and friendships and being in proximity to other people. We want other people to act a certain way, to behave a certain way, to meet us halfway. But you have to ask yourself, are you meeting other people halfway? Are you even meeting yourself halfway? So let's talk breakups. I remember when I first started the Visionary Boss, one of my first articles was called Self-Love. I remember that was back in 2016, and I dived into what self-love actually means. And to me, it was a lot more than just pampering yourself, buying an expensive gym membership, exfoliating the exterior. I thought about like self-love from a standpoint where you're exfoliating your soul. You're getting to the core of who you are. It's a bumpy road, and it's not linear as most people say. And I think we've kind of recognized that as like a collective, that self-love and self-care, it's not this easy path. There's a lot of bumps along the way. And a great analogy that I heard the other day was when you are like in the course of your life and you're driving through the same roads, eventually the terrain gets a little deeper and deeper, and it's easy to sink into your old ways and old patterns, but there is a way out of that. And for me in my life, there's been a lot of breakthroughs through breakups, and I want to share some perspective on why breakups can actually be beneficial. So of course, I'm not the type of person where I anticipate, like I'm excited about breaking up with things. I think that there's a level of comfort that we all have with certain places, people, things, and ideas, but there's something about being on the other side of it where we're able to circumnavigate and come home to our truest selves. Because again, I think that we do evolve with time, but when you evolve, you can think of it as you're evolving into a new person, into a new entity, or maybe you're just coming home to yourself. Maybe you've been so far gone for such a long time that you haven't really truly been yourself. And when you leave and you break up with things, you have the breakthrough where you're present with yourself, you are who you are again. You have to reevaluate how you direct your attention in life. If you're always worried about, again, if you're always worried about how people are and you're not concerned with your nature and who you are, then you end up giving so much energy to external things. And I think a lot of the times when we are in relationships, we're in friendships, we're in a certain place in our careers, we're in a certain place with our family, whether that's intermediate family or external family. When we feel that frustration and we feel that friction, a lot of the times, yes, it could be because other people are disappointing and they're not forthcoming with who they actually are. Sometimes that frustration is probably you. I would say that more than often, when we have a certain feeling about somebody, of course, we're valid in it and we should be validated, but you have to almost ask yourself if you're projecting onto other people. Like the qualities that you find disappointing maybe are qualities that you do yourself, but it's amplified through the other person. So if there's a certain thing that you don't like, if there's a certain pattern or behavior or a way of doing things, you have to sit back and kind of ask yourself, is it because this person's doing it I find it annoying, or is it because I also do this thing, or I am this thing. And breaking out of cycles, it's best to live in moderation and to take baby steps. You don't have to unfold and unravel each and every layer right then and there. But there's this song lyric, and actually a song title from All American Rejects, and the song is It Ends Tonight. The song, the chorus, it goes, when darkness turns to light, it ends tonight. Just a little insight won't make this right. It's too late to fight, it ends tonight. So when I first heard this song, I always thought it was about a breakup or someone, kind of parting their ways with somebody and letting the past be the past, bygones be bygones. But it's about the time like the lead singer Tyson had a roommate on tour and he was frustrating and he's fed up of dealing with that, and he got inspired from that, and he wrote It Ends Tonight. But sometimes you have to know when it's time to let go, and I can direct this. Sometimes you have to know when it's time to let go. I can direct this towards like myself when I just know that I have to get out of a mental place where I'm kind of in that stagnant place where everything's really settled, and nothing's wrong with that. It's okay when life slows down, but when you're not actually leaping forward, when you're just stuck in that place, whether it's like a mental place or it's actually you're just like stuck somewhere, that can feel frustrating. And you have to almost tell yourself, hey, this ends like today or tonight, like this mental struggle or me being fearful, because all fear is lack of knowledge or lack of experience. So that fear, that nervousness, jitteriness, those butterflies, sometimes you have to tell yourself like, hey, this actually has to end because I do want to grow. I want to be myself. I want to be the best version of myself. And that's subjective even, but you just need a different change of pace, and you have to be like, yeah, this has to kind of end. And I think we've all been there when we're in a relationship or a friendship or even a job, and you kind of look around and you're like, yeah, this is this hasn't been for me in a long time. Like I haven't felt like myself here. I think we all kind of deal with that. And the question I have for this is like a deeper universal question is, when we always find ourselves where we don't really necessarily belong in a place, or we no longer relate to people that we're around, like what happens when we do leave and we're introduced to more people and you keep going through that cycle where things just don't really fit? Kind of wonder that, because you see it in art, media, TV shows, and you also see it in your real life where you have a friend and they're at a job and it's like the environment no longer is for them and they've outgrown it. And I know people where relationships, it seems like they outgrow those relationships a lot and then they end up with somebody new. But just because something is new and it's like that novelty doesn't always mean that even that's a good fit either. So then I'm just curious, like, is there ever a point where you just reach that place where you are completely yourself and the people around you reflect that, and it's like a comforting feeling where you are supposed to be there? Or is it always like a struggle where you never feel like you belong somewhere and you have to keep breaking up with things and people? So yeah, I guess there's not really an answer to that. I think it's perspective. Like nothing is perfect and things are in moderation, but I will say that there has been definitely times where I was in an environment and I'm like, yeah, this isn't going to work anymore. I look around, I don't even relate. I can't relate to this. I feel like there's music that illustrates this so perfectly, or music videos. I'm thinking of like, there has to be a Duran Duran song that reflects that. And I say Duran Duran because lately I've been listening to them. I've been listening to their other group called Arcadia. And there's something about 80s ballads where it's really like soothing for the soul, and the lyrics are deep and introspective and super poetic, and you almost wonder how are they able to illustrate that feeling into beautiful poetry and lyrics and the synths, the synth, the 80s synth and all of that. But I was listening to Goodbye is Forever by Arcadia, and I was listening to that this morning. I was on my way to a coffee activation. So if you're in the Tampa, St. Pete area, if you're familiar with Form 43, it's a concrete studio, and they cater to, concrete, to live DJ and music, to vintage cars. And there's like in this entire thing. And they do a Sunday service. So today I went to their first Sunday service. At their first Sunday service, it was an activation with Sugar Baby Cafe in Tampa, which is more like Seminole area. So Seminole, but you know how us Tampa people are. We're like, everything's Tampa. And then someone's like, actually not. It's not actually not Tampa, but it's in Seminole. It's called Sugar Baby Cafe. And I did a blog write-up for them and did some photography about a year ago. But very charming, cute spot. The owner, she's so beautiful inside and out. So she was there. So kudos to them for doing that activation today. And it was awesome. I had a matcha. It was really smooth. I had a delicious loaf of blueberry. So that was a pretty good way to start my morning. But before I drove there, I set the tone. Had the windows down. I was going through, driving through the Howard Franklin Bridge. I had my Duran Duran. I was listening to The Chauffeur, and I was also listening to Don't Leave Me in the Dark by Arcadia. And then I was listening to Goodbye is Forever. And I actually like the song Goodbye is Forever because there is something beautiful and freeing about saying goodbye to old things. So I know it's difficult even breaking up with people, but I guess I say all of that. I mean, I reference me driving peacefully early this morning, getting up early, where you just feel like God surrounding you, and it's so peaceful, and it's like such a great start to the day because the birds are chirping and there's no one really out on the road, and it's just that peaceful solace. But I was driving and I'm thinking to myself, wow, life looks a lot different than it did a few months ago and last year, and that's completely fine. And why Goodbye is Forever and all of those songs are playing, I'm thinking to myself, sometimes goodbye is forever, and you have to let go of things. And there's almost peace with that. There's people, I think of like friends and like associates who were in long-term relationships, who were married even, and then they end up having to go through breakups and separating. And there's so much emotion tied into that. But I'll hit you with this. When you goodbye is forever, like just saying that, it sounds emotional and sad, but something about it is freeing. And it's like you get to kind of fly away and you get to emerge and you get to spread your wings a bit. There's beauty in that, because when you're holding on to this thing that you think is supposed to be forever, it's not even supposed to be temporary. It's not even supposed to go on that long, but you just hold on to it and it doesn't do anything for you. It keeps you in a cycle of being stagnant and honestly okay with settling. I think of there's a vivid memory I have where you're just sitting across the table from someone, you're having dinner or you're outside having lunch, you're on an outdoor patio and it's really still and it's quiet. There's just you and that person on that patio having lunch together, and you hear everything. You hear every clink of the fork. You hear every clink of the glass when you're pouring water into your glass, and you're looking at this person. You're having conversation, and it doesn't have to feel magnetic. It doesn't have to feel like anything, but you're just there, and you just know that this really isn't for either any of us. This isn't for me. It's not for you. You know that feeling when you're in a meeting. You're in a creative meeting with somebody and you've been working on this thing for a while, you're bouncing forth back ideas, and you just know that there's not really a pure synergy here. You know when you walk into a place, you're with friends, you're with old faces, new faces, and it's just that energy that's brimming on the surface, and it's like they don't want you here. Maybe you don't need to be here anymore. We've all know that. We all know the signs. You just have to be honest with yourself. Have you ever been in a room where you're visiting somebody and you're in their home, you're out somewhere where you guys always go, and you're sitting there and you're like, you know what? I find myself here all the time and nothing's changed, nothing's evolved. And it's not like you're chasing novelty. I don't think that's a good idea either, to always wanting to chase new, because you end up finding yourself in the same spots. But there's something about being somewhere that you haven't been in a while, and then you go back and you're sitting there and everything's the same. Nothing has changed. I mean, the only thing that's changed is the calendar date. And that's when you know you have to let go, and it's time to do something different. Maybe not even new, but it's just something different, or to take a step back, break away from that. Your life should not be a broken record player. It should be a greatest hits album. And even when it's not, it should be a beautiful deep cut that makes you think, all right, This was tough. This was something I didn't expect or want to go through, but I had to go through it. And when you get to the other side, there's freedom there. But I have noticed, I have friends and they will be in a certain job environment, a certain job, all right, and things aren't working out so great. And then they leave, better opportunity. For whatever reason, there's that emotion that's still attached to being at that old place where maybe they've had to settle, water themselves down a little bit, compromise. Maybe they weren't exactly who they were. And it's almost emotional in itself to think about that and then to look on the other side. It's emotional when you leave somewhere or someone when you know it just was not the right fit. And when you have that freedom, that peace, and like that clarity again, you're like, wow, why was I there for so long or even a short period at all? So breaking up, it's uncomfortable, but once you rip that bandage off, you have freedom on the other side, but it takes time. It takes time to almost settle in that freedom because I know people who will leave and they will go away from something or whatever it may be. It could be that you're leaving a family, an unhealthy environment, an unhealthy family environment. You're leaving a friendship that no longer aligns with you and that makes you feel like you have to be in your shell. You're walking away from a relationship where you've been walking on eggshells for way too long. You're walking away from a home that's no longer your home. You're walking away from a job or environment of people who are not your people. And I guess sometimes maybe you won't find your people, but I'm saying all of this to say that you walk away and then there's like that kind of that balancing time where it's all right, you've transitioned over to the other side, but you kind of have to remember why you did in the first place, and you can't like lean back and settle and go back to what once was. And I challenge you to allow yourself to break up with things. And sometimes it's not even just breaking up with that job or that person, leaving that friend group, leaving that group chat. Sometimes it's bigger. You have to ask yourself, why was I staying so long? And why did I not know that I had strength to leave? Why did I not know that I had the capacity, I had the inherent value all along, and I didn't belong there, and I didn't have to make myself fit there? And then once you get to that side of it, then you're stronger in your rationale, you're stronger in your future decision making. Because you don't have to be in a spot that you don't want to be. It's even like a gym. It's like being at a gym that no longer serves you. I remember I had a membership to a gym, and after a while, things just, I'll say it like in a metaphorically way and poetic way, because it's the way you can fit it into any situation, but the colors just no longer aligned with me. The feeling of it, I didn't like going anymore. It wasn't for me for so many different reasons. But then you kind of get stuck. It's like, okay, I have a membership and I think about canceling the membership, but I haven't quite yet. And then one day I decided, this ends tonight. I don't want to do this anymore. I ended my membership. I explore. I test out the waters of other gyms. And this is like, could be an example for a relationship. You leave your open playing field, open plane, and then you try to uncover what is it that I want next. And I made a list of things mentally in my head of what do I want the next gym experience to be like, because being in the gym, cleanliness matters, being comfortable in there matters, like feeling like you can actually get a good workout in, feeling like there's enough equipment, they have the right equipment for you. That mattered to me. That was really important. So then I went to another gym and I'm like, okay, this aligns better. Signed up, got the membership. I'm like, wow, why didn't I do this sooner? Why did I stay so long at the other place? Why did I have allegiance to the other place? Same thing with a job. Have you ever been somewhere where, we always aim for growth. Have you ever been somewhere where their growth just wasn't really there? And whether it was organizational or whether it was department wise, like you weren't really going to go anywhere. And then you finally get the courage to look elsewhere. Maybe you set the intention and someone else finds you, and then you leave and the people around you are like, oh, you're leaving? And it's like, yes, and you can leave as well. You don't have to stay here. You don't have to stay in this place. In a relationship, if you kind of know when it doesn't align, when you can have great chemistry with somebody, but as far as compatibility, as far as like the commitment level, can this actually transcend for not just a season, but for a long time? Can you actually enjoy being with this person? Did this person respect you? Do you respect yourself by being in this relationship? And if you're getting a lot of no's there, then you have to know that, all right, it's time for me to break free. It's not the worst thing to be single. It's not the worst thing to walk away from something. Never stay somewhere because it's comfortable or because it's predictable, because what's predictable isn't always really comfortable for you mentally. And then you step away from it, and then you ask yourself, why was I in this place? This was uncomfortable for me. It was a mental challenge for me to be in this place, but here I was trying to make the pieces fit and work. It's all learning lessons. So I say break up with that. And the bigger thing and the bigger arena to solve is breaking up from your limitations, breaking up from your lack of self-esteem, your breaking up with your self-doubt, your willingness to be in uncomfortable spaces and places and mind frames, and breaking free, taking time to yourself, asking those bigger, deeper questions. You have to be the one to do it. Dr. Melfi is not always available, okay? You have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, why am I like this? And you got to think back to your childhood. You have to think back to first job experiences. You have to think back to first relationships and situations that you've been in with other people. And why am I like this? I would say your chapter of new beginnings start now. Now that you've turned the page, you get to be you, and you get to, I would say you get to be you, and it might be a little bit slower. I think that when you turn the page, there's a lot of baby steps that need to take place. You feel new again, and you're like, whoa, how do I navigate this? But you will navigate it, and it will be different than any way you ever navigated it before. It has to be. And it's like when you break up with like that fear, you break up with that apprehension, you break up with those little doubts in your head, and then you allow yourself to actually be. I will say, walking into new rooms, you're not going to always have a warm welcome. Next person that you meet may not be the one. The next job maybe just be a stepping stone, all right? The next home you move in is not the forever home, but at least you left. At least you trusted yourself enough to leave and to learn more. Life is not a DCOM extra. It's not a Disney movie. It's not any of that. Life sometimes has its ups and its downs, where you close the door, you enter a new one, and that new door, maybe it's the same. Maybe it's a little different, but you keep pushing, you keep going. And this podcast, by saying that you have to know that you have inherent value, and that will actually be the topic of next week's episode, but you have to know that you have so much value. You are so promising. I don't care if you've been through a million different things. Keep going, because there's going to be an opportunity for you. There's going to be things for you that show you who you are, but you have to know that you deserve to get to the other side. This is Kaylin. Thank you for listening to the Visionary Boss podcast.